kitchen, cooking up some sprouts. Blod grabbed at his attention with a mighty shout. They rushed around in earnest, looking for her things, and I remembered weeks ago when time had wings. They went to see the doctor, he sent them for a scan. She took him into town, 'cause they would need a pram. They set up home for baby in the nursery. Bob and Blod had planned it, it was meant to be. In and out of traffic, Bob is tooting the horn. They've got to reach maternity before the baby's born. Blod is breathing gently now, she's timed it to a T, having been to all the classes and remained healthy. Healthy is all about looking at our bodies from the inside out. Now, the 2 series so far have been a bit of an adventure, following my journey through the human body, stopping at various places of interest that are relevant to the children within the boundaries of the curriculum. The aim was to capture the fascination of children with the inner workings of the body and guide them into making choices that lead to healthier lifestyles. As an aid to achieving this, the children were given an insight into the lives of the 2 people whose bodies are visited by me. That's Blod in Series 1, aimed at children between 7 and 9 years old. Bob in Series 2, aimed at children between 8 and 10. Series 3 deals with sex education for 9 to 11-year-olds. Because the audience is older, the suspension of disbelief is less, but I'm still there, as tiny as ever, walking through a giant set designed to give children a close-up view of the reproductive system. This gave us the opportunity to unite our 2 bodies from the previous series, Blod and Bob, and the programmes, in particular the first one, gives the children an insight into their relationship. In our story, they are now married and about to have a baby, which happened to coincide with Blod's real-life pregnancy. We deal with conception, development of the baby, health of the mother, and the birth. During this series, however, we do look at various family structures, and one of the things that we have stressed throughout the 3 series is that all of us are different. No one is the same, and all people are special. Havren Primary School in mid-Wales has already used the series in conjunction with the work cards in the teacher's notes. All schools should have a policy agreed by their governors to guide the teaching of sex education. With parental support, this has been in place for some time at the school.
Parents in this school have, on the whole, been very supportive. We've had 1 or 2 who have felt that they didn't want the children involved, and we respect their wishes. But on the whole, I think parents have been very pleased. I think the children actually, as with everything else in school, they don't just undertake tasks in school and then forget about them. They take them home with them. And I'm sure that much of the work that they've undertaken has been the basis for and a stimulus for lively conversations at home.
When we're actually working through the worksheets in connection with the video programmes, one of the things I did want to make sure was that there was children, the mix of sexes, there were girls and boys working together, because then they could put their own input of what they were experiencing, if anything at all, at that point. But as groups work, I thought for some of the worksheets it was fine to just have small groups, but in some of the others it was nice to get the whole class together and sit and talk to all of them.
Even though we're all different human beings with minds of our own, different cultural backgrounds, different attitudes, the inner workings of all healthy bodies are very much the same, apart from the obvious differences between males and females. And certainly, we're all made up of the same kind of building blocks, millions upon millions of cells. Let me take you inside to find the building blocks of your body. There are millions upon millions of them. You can't see what they look like. They're much too small to be seen with your eyes. They are called cells. In the first of the 4 programmes, we tried to give the children a good basic introduction to the nature of the building blocks. And also, we described the contents of the cells and their purpose. But of course, DNA comes into this. Children have heard plenty about it on the television anyway. We feel talking about DNA gives the children a chance to understand the significance of why a sperm and an egg have to come together to create a new cell, carrying recipes from the mother and the father to make a new human being. Right. I need a cover slip now. Have you got one of those for me? Gosh, I'm starting to cry with all these onions. Okay. Inside, they look a bit like this. Everything floats around in a clear liquid, and it's all kept inside by a membrane, which only lets some things through it. Depending on how much the children have managed to grasp, there are a variety of activities relating to cells and their function.
Yeah. Try and peel it off very, very carefully. Initially, when you're talking about cells, it's very hard for them to visualize or conceptualize the size of a cell. It's very easy to talk about hundreds and thousands of cells across the head of a pin, but to actually sort of visualize that is very, very difficult. So with the work card and making the onion skin cell slides, they were very amazed to see how many cells that they could actually see down a microscope just from a little bit of onion skin. And I think that meant more to them than half an hour talking about cells. That's it. Now place a spot of iodine on the cell. That's it. Then you'll need a cover to put on the top of that. See if you can see it under the slide now. Right, have a look, see what you can see now. Can you see the cells?
Yeah.
Lauren?
Oh, there's loads of them.
One of the most important areas to cover is puberty and the differences between the sexes. Many children helped us make the programmes by sharing their own experiences.
I'm starting to grow hair around my mouth. I've started shaving now, and I shave about 3 times a week.
Well, it started probably just after Christmas, and a lot of my parents, my voice has gone very deep.
I know that my periods are going to start soon, and I don't really like the idea of having periods.
In programme 2, my journey takes me from the ovary along the fallopian tube to the uterus, where we tackle menstruation. The children see firsthand that the lining of the uterus comes away once a month. Again, the teacher's notes suggest activities and topics for discussion.
Well, when we were dealing with particular sort of intimate problems, perhaps, as you say, with the periods and things, I just found that because the video had dealt with it in response to all of the children, and it was in such a nice, easy way, that I just followed that through and was talking to it in a sensible way, and I didn't feel that any of the children were getting either embarrassed or uninterested because boys didn't refer to periods and they weren't happy with that. They all seemed pretty able to handle the problems of the opposite sexes, so I just continued keeping them all together.
I think it's important for them to hear each other's point of view, and throughout their school life, it's mixed sexes throughout their school life, so they need to combine together and have a joint input into these things.
Girls may already have noticed some changes, and it's important for them to know they are not alone. All girls experience them, even superhumans.
Sometimes even the stress of doing gladiators can either prevent your periods from coming or bring them on early. And the amount of times I've heard someone running into the dressing room saying, "Has anyone got a Tampax?"
Talking about the periods on the video, I was very pleased in the format that it took, in that it was a sensible approach and it was very factual and it was very visual as well. I don't think I could have stood there and talked about it in any great length, but having seen the video, I was very happy with the format of the programme, and I felt it covered the issue very successfully. A lot of you have asked questions. One of the questions is, how long do you have periods for? Can anybody answer me that question? Claire?
Until you're about 40 years old.
Yes, you have periods until you're about 40 or 50. All right? And how long do you have periods for during the month? Kerrin?
Once a month.
Once a month. And for what period then? For about?
7 days.
Not quite 7 days. About 5 or 6 days. Right.
Plenty of references are made in the third of the 4 programmes about changes that happen to boys. And hopefully this will inspire the children to discuss some of the worries that they may have.
I think some of the problems that you deal with when, say, like I say, as I'm a woman, dealing with some of the problems the boys might have or the changes they have, you do find that you can't really give as much to the boys if they start asking certain questions as you would to the girls, because you've been through it yourself. But I found that most of the boys were I'm teaching year 5, so they didn't have an awful lot of tricky questions about experiencing different problems.
If there are some questions that children would prefer not to ask in front of the class, the teacher's notes includes a section on the use of an anonymous question box. This also means that the teacher can prepare answers in advance. There are suggestions for group work and quizzes, labelling and artwork.
Right, so that's puberty just starting to happen, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, right. You just read one now then, Matthew.
I have no hair on my face.
Right, which one do you think that one goes to,
Well,
Sean?
I suppose it could be that one.
or that one.
Yeah, because he hasn't started the hair yet.
Right, so you could, that's right, because puberty doesn't happen at the same time for everyone there, does it? So he might have started in some parts, but he still might not have hair on his face. Good boy.
Naturally, in the last of the 4 programmes, we need to describe how sperm meets egg to form a brand new life. We use Blood and Bob as an example of a couple that makes a decision to have a child and who make love at a time when Blood has an egg waiting in her fallopian tube. We describe what happens in the male reproductive system in order to make the sperm shoot out. I am no longer in the picture, but the great sperm race is described in some detail by the sperm themselves. The road is long and twisty with lots of lumps and holes. If I keep my cool, I'll avoid all those. Sugar in the semen, enough to last the trip. I wish I hadn't said that, here comes another blip. Egg me on, I got style and wit. Ah, that's not fair, I didn't spot that pit. My friends are lost or tired, the egg is in sight. I think I'm gonna make it, guys, yes! I'm all right.
Sperm travels down the penis. Travels down these to the penis.
That's right. Do you know what part that is?
Testicles.
Is that quite right? Have a look again. Sperm travels down these to the penis. What's happening at the testicle? Do you remember what actually happens there?
Oh yeah, they make the sperm.
That's right, good girl. That's where they make the sperm. So try and point. I think when you're dealing with perhaps sexual intercourse from the videos, you've got your own mind about experiences that you've got. But as a professional, you don't want to really put anything like that across. It's such a careful area because you don't want to influence them in any way or any opinions that they've got. You just have to be quite neutral and open, and not say that anything's taboo or can't talk about that, but to not really influence them in anything they want to, decisions and things they'll make later on in their lives about things that they've seen.
I think you have to sort of praise them in their attitude towards the video, if they've been well behaved and how sensible they've been, and praise them for their input. And I think the more praise you give them, the more grown up they feel.
After the sperm and the egg meet, we go back to discussing cells and talk about the way that 2 sets of DNA join together to make a new cell, which in turn divides to make a multi-celled baby. The cells divide and divide. They will be different shapes and sizes, and according to the instructions, some cells will move to certain places and make the different organs that we all have. As a finale, we follow Blood and Bob as they make their last-minute preparations for the birth of the new baby. And this gives us an opportunity to talk about making sure that the fetus remains healthy in the womb, and of course, leads us up to the birth itself.
I think you knew from programme 1 that there was going to be a birth at the end of the series, and the children did especially, because the seed was sown, so to speak, in the first video, and they were waiting for it to happen by the final video. They didn't bat an eyelid, to be honest, watching the birth of a child. They were quite interested in it, and a number of them said, "Oh, look, there's the umbilical cord, and that's your belly button," and there were discussions of things like that.
So, how does a baby that big get out of a gap that small? A question often asked. The neck of the uterus then opens and stretches to about 10 centimetres wide. That's about this much. Still not much room, I know. But the bones in the baby's skull move a little bit so that the head can be pushed through safely. The vagina is quite stretchy, so once it's through the opening, the only way is out. And here she comes, a brand new baby girl.
I knew I was going to sort of handle this sex education business. I know that myself, I haven't had an awful lot of experience teaching it before, so I knew that I was quite apprehensive and a little bit worried about it. But having then watched the videos before even trying anything with the children, I felt a lot more secure myself. I found that I was learning a lot through the video and how easily it was presented and talked about in a lovely, sensible way. So I adopted this way myself, this attitude, and the children were particularly good, very responsive to that, having watched the video, seen how the person in the video was talking, and then seeing that I would follow that through, that they were very good with it. They could watch it without being too silly, and in fact, I didn't have any silliness at all. They were excellent.
Initially, I had some hang-ups that it might be a little bit embarrassing, but I was very surprised at how adult and how sensible they were and how keen they were to see the next video each time. A very sensible attitude, and I'm very pleased about that. And when I was talking to them, I think if you use the language that has been used in the video and you come straight out with it and they see that you're not getting embarrassed, then they follow suit and they take it as a sensible class situation.
I think that the teachers in this school would know from our scheme of work what actually we intend to cover. I think it's very important for us to know that we are not going to deliver the whole of the sex education curriculum in the primary school. A number of issues, I feel, belong to the secondary sector and probably to the post-15-16 sector even. But I think that when questions are asked that the teacher feels uncomfortable with, then I think that the teacher has to be perfectly honest, and just as he would or she would be in any other subject, and say, well, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that at the moment, but perhaps I can find someone else who can give you the answer, or it would be a good idea for you to talk about that with your parents.
There are plenty of examples for activities dealing with all aspects of the series in the teacher's notes. So, I hope that you and the class enjoy the series, and by the way, Blod's real baby is doing very well.
Hooray!
Baby Anna weighed 3.7 kilograms when she was born. I wonder what she'll think of her own birth.
My favourite part was when the baby was born, and I've never seen a baby being born before. I like the bit where the sperm was travelling to the egg and it got lost somewhere.
Well, I like the birth because when it came out, it was all purple and it looked like it had just been in a cold bath or something.
I like the sky where it was going in and it showed the baby keeping up. I liked seeing the baby in the scan and on the little video, seeing it curling up.
When you were inside the ovary and you were explaining about periods and things, and you chucked the lining of the womb down the vagina.
I thought that nothing happened to the boys and just happened to the girls first, but now I've realised that it happens to the boys and the girls. Before I was worried about my periods, but I'm not anymore because I watched all about it on the Healthy series.
Bob was in the kitchen cooking up some sprouts. Blod grabbed at his attention with a mighty shout. They rushed around in earnest, looking for her things, and I remembered weeks ago when time had wings. They went to see the doctor, he sent them for a scan. She took him into town, because they would need a pram. They set up home for baby in the nursery. Bob and Blod had planned it, it was meant to be. In and out of traffic, Bob is tooting the horn. They've got to reach maternity before the baby's born. Blod is breathing gently now, she's timed it to a T, having been to